name is Max. My world is fire and blood. Once, I was a cop, a road warrior searching for a righteous cause. As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy, me or the Neon Crew podcast.
Yeah.
Bada bing. Welcome, everybody, to the 73rd episode of the Neon Crew podcast. My name is Kyle.
I'm McClain.
And we've got some movies to talk about, but first, a bit of business. I have to tell you about this because this is movie-related, and it was something that I did over the weekend.
Oh.
So, not going to totally dox ourselves, but in West Michigan, in Grand Rapids, there is a theater that, you know, sometimes they'll host, like, movie festival stuff, or like they'll have a special showing of like an indie movie or like something locally made, or they'll have, you know, some interactive theater stuff. Like I think they had some like Rocky Horror Picture Show things happening there before.
Do they do any live podcasts?
I should look into that because that honestly might be a fun thing if people want to do that.
All 12 people.
Well, if all 305 of our YouTube subscribers want to fly out to Michigan,
yes,
they'll have to pay for their own ticket. I'm not paying for them, but they're more than welcome to come to a potential show if we ever did something like that. But this theater, and I'm hesitant to name the theater because I don't know if I want to like dox them necessarily. Actually,
dox them in a negative way.
I guess it'd be more of a positive thing. So I guess I can say.
Yeah, this is we're throwing out a plug.
Yeah. So Wealthy Theater in Grand Rapids. Have you ever been there?
Nope. Sounds rich.
It's a very right. Sounds not poor. It's a very small kind of like a niche little older theater that's in Grand Rapids, and they had a showing of The Room.
Oh,
you know, Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, hi, Mark. I know. The collective groan of Mac because he loves his movies that are so bad that they're good.
No, I was thinking of the other. Maybe it's just.
Were you
it's
thinking
just
of Fateful
Room.
Findings?
No, just Room.
Oh, you were thinking of the Brie Larson joint.
Yes.
Okay. No, that would be a weird interactive theater experience.
I didn't really, interact. So, what are you guys throwing popcorn at the freaking projector?
Anytime they try to leave and they can't leave, we're just like, hey, they're stuck still.
Yeah, they chain up the doors.
Yeah, that would be very interactive. No, this was for The Room, Tommy Wiseau's The Room, and Greg Sestero was there. He was there selling merch and signing stuff. For those who don't know, Greg Sestero played Mark in The Room. He's the second male lead in the film.
Okay.
And, you know, I got to meet him. That was fun.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. The second celebrity I've ever directly interacted with. The first one being Steve-O.
Yep. At the bowling alley.
At the Sherman Bowling Alley in Michigan.
Times are hard.
Times are hard, but I was still willing to go see him.
Not for you. Not for I wonder how long that agent lasted.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was a good time. I got to talk to him. I said, nice shirt. And he said, oh, thank you. It's actually, his shirt was like a weird astronaut graphic with like the word Forbidden Sky on it. And he said, oh, yeah, thank you. It's going to be our next movie that we're working on. You're going to actually see a trailer for it after The Room is done showing. And I'm like, oh, sweet. And then the trailer didn't play. I was like, oh, okay.
You got pranked.
I think he was just pranking me, dude.
Yeah. Hey, he had a good laugh with you.
He seemed very chill, very down to earth.
Yeah, that's the weed.
He might have been high.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you.
At least he's not in a bowling alley showing this film. So
right, and there was a ton of people there.
Oh, I'm sure it's pop culture. There's probably a cult following with it.
There definitely is a cult following to it.
For good or bad, I don't know.
People were quoting it at each other like it was basically like going to a Rocky Horror Picture Show.
It's so weird that there's like really bad films that people just love. But I feel like it's in the wrong way of loving something.
Oh, it definitely is, but that's the appeal of it, right? You get to enjoy this bad thing together and sort of revel in making fun of it.
Appeal's a great word to use.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very accurate. He got up on stage, and one of the cool things that they did, out of the many cool things, was he had the old version of the script because he was roommates with Tommy Wiseau. So he's just like collected all this shit while living with him when they were making The Room. And so he had people go on stage, and they did a live reading of the original script.
Oh.
And it is as janky as you could imagine a first draft version of The Room being.
Yep.
Like, it was really...
It's even jankier than what came out.
If you can somehow scrape together the possibility of believing that.
Oh, my God.
But that was a fun time. That was really cool. And then while the movie played, it was mostly like the beginning and the end, but like he provided some live commentary. And it was one of those interactive movie experiences where, like, you know, people are shouting quotes, and like anytime there's spoons on screen, people yell spoons and they throw plastic spoons.
That's fun.
It was fun.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
That'd be a fun thing, and I'm glad that Greg's able to lean into that.
Oh, me too. It's one of those things where you can clearly tell he gets a lot of fun out of it still.
Yeah.
Like the way he talks about it on stage and like providing the commentary, and like you can tell he's like told the same jokes over and over again, but he gets a kick out of people laughing at them every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to do a Q&A after, but I think because it started late and went over, I think they had to cut that. So unfortunately, I couldn't ask him, you know, what his hair treatment is or like how he manages to stay so handsome all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe next time. I guess they did it last year. I don't know if he was there last year or not, but they did a showing of The Room. I'm just going to talk through that.
No, you're good. I think that was the answer. No, he wasn't.
Yeah. That's him trying to call into the show.
Yeah.
But they might be doing it again next year.
Cool.
So, you know, if you ever wanted to tag along.
Nope.
Okay.
Like I said, appeal's a great word, and it just does not appeal to me.
Have you been to any sort of interactive movie showing like that, or like a Rocky Horror Picture Show type thing?
You know, I don't think I have enough passion about any movie that I would want to. Twister would be like one, you know, but like when you're talking big name actors, so I don't know if there's anything small that I've seen. Silver Bullet, actually.
Silver Bullet would be the one.
Yeah, Silver Bullet would be a great one.
As much of a cult following as that might have, I'm not sure people would be clamoring to have a live theater experience of Stephen King's Silver Bullet.
No, but I mean, like, you know, the other, like, The Big Lebowski for me would be another one.
Interesting.
No Country for Old Men was indie enough at the time.
Yeah.
You know, but like, that's what I'm saying. Some of the stuff that I like that came out early on, it's grown and the people actually grew with it. So there isn't anything that ever stayed small.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I don't even think I'd have questions. I just would be enamored the whole time.
And that's the thing, too, with some movies, is that I don't know if I would ever want there to be a theater experience viewing of it, because sometimes I just want to watch the movie.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time if, like, people are, like, shouting the lines or, like, reciting it. Like, that's part of the fun of The Room, is, like, everybody's seen it that's there. So they're just reciting the lines and, like, joking with each other. Like, it's still a good time.
It reminds me of Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly what it reminds me of. Like the beginning of, you know, and I don't think, like I'm saying, I don't think I've got anything where I am that passionate about it, or I've seen it enough times where I could just, oh my God, why'd you do this? And if it is a movie, it was a big budget movie.
Yeah.
You know, where this one, but that's fun. It sounds fun. And I think I'm saying it sounds fun from a sense of, from gaining your perspective on it. I'm glad that you had a great time doing it.
I love that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I am a person that I think sometimes I have a hard time conversing with people, because like I really get into, like, if someone likes something and they get passionate about it, I am tell me all, like, fill me in.
Yeah.
Let me feed off of your energy right now. You
can kind of feel some of the passion from them going towards you.
Yeah. I got some friends that, like, with their jobs, you can tell that they like their jobs, but, you know, their spouses or whoever they talk with, not necessarily, like, totally involved with, or they've heard the same story, you know. But for me, I'm like, dude, feed it.
That's how I feel
this.
when Gideon talks to me about music. It's
Yeah.
like I don't fucking understand a goddamn thing about music, but as soon as you start going off about like this type of synthesizer or like this loop that you managed to do or like this track that you composed or whatever, it's like I'm all in.
Yeah.
Like give it all to me.
Yeah. And
shoot it into my arm.
I'm super happy for you, and your joy is giving me joy right now. You know, so that's why that sounds really fun for 200 people being involved in. Sounds like it was great energy. I can't go there because I'd be bored out of my mind.
Sure.
But hearing about it, I love it.
You might get some surface level amusement from just how into it other people are, and that might be it. Like, that might be the furthest your investment would go if you were there.
I would be smart. For the first 10 minutes when people are cracking off quotes and throwing stuff, I'd be like, oh, man, this is awesome. And then once I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. I got everything I need. I could hear a story about this, you know, in an hour.
And the energy can be a little overwhelming, too, sometimes.
Well, that's what happens when you get into, like, those cult, you know.
Emphasis on cult.
Yeah.
Speaking of cult, that's a good fucking segue.
Hell yeah.
We watched 2 movies.
We did.
Set in the same franchise.
We did.
Mad Max Fury Road and Furiosa.
Yes.
A Mad Max Saga. So this is one of those discussions where I don't really think it matters too much which one we talk about first. Okay. So which do you have a preference for? Which one are you leaning towards?
I'll give this to you. I have a rating for one, and I don't have a rating for another one. So what one do you want to go into first? The one I feel solid on, or the one that we're going to have to discover together?
Let's go for the one that we feel solid on.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Fury Road.
All right. So, cool. That's the one I recommended, so that's the one I will give a summation for.
Awesome.
All right. Mad Max Fury Road, 2015 Australian post-apocalyptic action film. Co-written, co-produced, and directed by George Miller. It stars Tom Hardy as Max Rokitansky, Charlize Theron as Imperator Furiosa, Nicholas Hoult as Nux, and Hugh Keys-Byrne as Immortan Joe. And then, of course, various other characters. Movie starts off. Max is giving a monologue about how he used to be a cop, but now he's just surviving, and that's all he knows how to do. He's being chased down by the war boys. They catch up to him, and then it cuts to Charlize Theron, who is going to make a stop at Gastown for Immortan Joe, as she is one of his lieutenants. And then Immortan Joe discovers that Furiosa took his prized brides, and they're trying to make it to the green place. They chase after her. Tom Hardy's Max gets in the mix, and we just go from there.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert for Mad Max Fury Road. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking this movie out.
Same.
So, this is one that I recommended mostly based on the timing of Furiosa coming out, but also because I think it's just worth discussing anyway, from a production standpoint, from a franchise standpoint, from just an action post-apocalyptic movie standpoint. This is one that when I first saw it, I saw it on TV, which is
God.
I
Cut
think
the mic.
I must have mentioned that sometime before.
And
if I did, you don't remember.
Nah, I think you're covering tracks here.
Maybe. I'm covering my tracks in the storm so that you don't follow me into the canyon. But obviously that's not an ideal way to watch this movie.
No,
like
not at
an
all.
R-rated balls to the walls action thriller film. And you know, I watched it and I was like, yeah, this is really good. I like this. But you're not getting like the full scope of everything, especially watching it on like a 480p quality television in like 2017 at your parents' house, right?
Yeah.
So years pass by and I finally give it a rewatch like maybe a month ago. I'm like, okay, I need to rewatch this in preparation for Furiosa. And I rewatch it and I'm like, holy shit, this movie's fucking awesome. This is great. I'm loving pretty much everything about this. And it's like hitting all the sweet spots I want out of a movie like this.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's great that I can enjoy this separate from the other Mad Max films because I hadn't seen those. I still haven't seen those. Those are on my list. But Yeah, I mean, I've been waxing poetic about it for the past few minutes or so. I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, no, I think I talked about this a little last time. I was out at Ferris, so I had just I go out there. I'm getting into like my coaching, trying to get into my coaching career, like, or continue it, And I was living on a couch. I think I just got done working at a telemarketing company because it was kind of like I went out there as volunteer coach, and I think it was right before the summer that they were going to start paying for my master's, and I had no money. I'm sitting on this couch. I'm all by myself. It's kind of like towards the end of May, early June, I want to say, when it came out. So some of the kids, they'd go home before summer workout starts. So I'm like literally by myself. I think I had $10 to my name or whatever. And this movie, I mean, everyone was talking about it. It looks sweet. The trailer was awesome. It's Tom Hardy.
WWTHD.
I mean, like I'm fully bought in. So there was a movie screen that was just down the road because like in Ferris, everything's like connected. There's one strip that's got the two restaurants I eat at, the movie theater, a JCPenney's, and the bar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was like, I'm just going to take whatever money I got, I'm going to go and see this thing. And I think there's some female empowerment, because I want to say this was right on the cusp of the Me Too movement. So this thing, like...
Yeah, it came out a couple years before the whole like Weinstein stuff.
Right.
But it was made in 2012, so it was, in production for a bit of time before that. But
yeah.
You're definitely right in that like there is a focus on like more feminist themes.
And you hadn't really seen that in a while, like a kick-ass female lead, co-lead,
Well, especially in like a post-apocalyptic story.
Yeah, where like the men got to take charge of everything and run everything, and
or like not even just that, but like the focus isn't necessarily like women empowerment. It's more so just like basic survival. I don't want to die type of shit,
Oh, like you're saying like prior to this?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. So, it was a fresh take. It looked great in the trailer. When I had $10, so I knew that I had to make sure that I enjoyed the hell out of this thing. And seeing it in the theater, I mean, I don't think there's a second the first time you see it. That's why I feel kind of bad that you saw it on a TV.
I wish I saw it in theaters. If they ever re-release it, I'm going as soon as I can.
Dude, you've seen my TV. I mean, it's all right. And
yeah, it's bigger than mine.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know if I can gauge the picture quality because we were playing a PlayStation 2 game when I was over there last.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So, I mean, rewatching, I was like, oh man, this thing it holds up.
I'm thinking of Sam's TV. I'm thinking of Sam's TV because like that was when we were playing the PS1 game or whatever, right? The like Olympic game.
Oh yeah.
No, your TV's good. I like your TV,
but it still doesn't hold up to being in the theaters. Like this is a movie that is designed to see on the big screen.
Yes,
and I saw this thing and it really just in wow. This I think it's one of the first films that I was like, oh, production value. Because there's a lot of movies that you've seen that take place on sets, or you got some certain set designs.
There's green screen, or there's some special effects trickery going on.
Yeah, where people are moving around, like flying in the air as they're going off a car,
or like they're on a lot.
Yeah, like okay, I can tell that they cut off this chunk. And this movie, you really have no idea where they're at and how much of land they had to use to film all this.
I read that 90% of what they shot was in camera, and that like 10% were just like special effects, but like most of the movie is just real shit happening.
Yeah, and the special effects is probably like Morton Joe's the Sanctuary.
The Coliseum or the Citadel.
The Citadel. Yes. And not the Gasland. I think it was kind of like you could tell. Gastown, you could tell.
There's probably like some distance shots where like they added some like landmarks here and there.
When it comes to the marking and the actual stunts, I couldn't tell you if anything was green screened or they had to get it in post production.
Right. I think maybe some of the war boys falling off of the vehicles.
Yeah.
But like even then those shots are so quick and like the impact of it is good enough to get you behind it.
Yes. So this thing is hands down one of the best visual movies that you can see.
That thought swept through my mind the most during the storm scene.
Yeah.
Like the absolute apex of like that first half hour blitzkrieg of an action scene.
Yeah.
Where like it just keeps ramping up and like that storm is the culmination of everything that you've been seeing so far. And it's so good. It's super striking. Like it looks like you're watching some live wallpaper. Except it's inherently more interesting because like there's shit going on, you know?
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I think there's like probably 3. So you get that one leading off right there, right? And you're kind of like, how much further can this go? Because that was like, give me a second to catch my breath, you know? And then it kicks right back into gear.
Yep.
You know,
you go right into a good action choreography scene between Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. And like, I love the, I don't want to use the word gimmick because I feel like that's diminutive, but the fact that Nux is tied to him the entire time is such a good way of like framing the action scene and like having the good back and forth between like him and the brides and him and Charlize Theron, and Nux gets involed.
And now they got to team up to try to get him out, and Nux is realizing, oh, I've got to help him when he's supposed to be like my vessel, you know? I mean, it's there's so much shit going on, and it really is set in the post-apocalyptic world of, you know, like in a common society that happens. Someone probably stops it and goes, hold on, let's figure out what's going on, everyone, you know? And then they do they show the shot, the cars are all coming, so you know that they're on a timeline too now. Like they can't just sit here and do this until these cars show up, because then they're all 3 fucked, you know? And he realizes, I forgot why he gets involved, but I think he's like, oh, if I get off this thing, I can commandeer this and get it back to Immortan Joe. And Tom Hardy's like, I'm trying to escape. And Charlize Theron's like, I'm getting these gals to the green place. So they all have their own motives of why they're trying to survive right now. And I mean, at the end of the day, too, the end of the line is coming to them. You know, so it's like, it's fantastic just watching it, like in very small motives, but very like big picture, big concept, you know, like survival at the end of the day is the number one goal, right? And it's easy to make that the motive. And then you kind of tie in where all 3 of these people want to go at that time. And it's fascinating. I mean, it's really fun to watch.
It's a very good use of making the minimal expressions that the characters have convey a lot of meaning towards how they feel about each other and their relationships. Like, that first scene where they're all together, like, because it truly is, in my opinion, that like Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, and Nicholas Hoult are like the 3 protagonists of this movie. Yeah. And when they all are there, it's like a really good indication of like where they're at and like the dynamics that they have and like how that changes over the course of the movie through very minimal use of dialogue and like things, but like it's all through the action. Yeah, it's all through the things that the characters do and like the grunts that they have. I mean, Tom Hardy's such a great grunter in this movie.
Well, he can't use his mouth. They covered it up the whole time.
Yeah. Most of his quotes are just.
Well, and what's the deal? Like it's in Australia, right?
Yes.
Okay. Were they like so like, because you can't do an Australian accent, we just can't have you talk?
So I think George Miller, from what I read, originally wanted this to be minimal dialogue from like the early onset of when he thought of this movie. Okay. And I mean, I think that's just something that's carried forward through the entire thing. And I mean, I think that's very apparent too when we get to talk about Furiosa. Yeah. And I haven't seen any of the other Mad Max movies, so I can't attest to like how the dialogue is in those films. But this feels like his intention the entire time. It doesn't feel necessarily like a product of, oh, Tom Hardy can't do the accent, so we're just going to have him be quiet the whole movie. Yeah. It's more so just the choice of like, you know, people like the silent protagonist sometimes, or they like the protagonist that like doesn't say a whole lot. It kind of gives it like a Western feel almost, when
Yeah.
like you have a character who like strolls in, doesn't say much, helps save the day, and then fucking dips out at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, on to the next. Like I really enjoy that framework with this type of setting and story.
Yeah, this is a very Western-like.
It's very Western-like that way.
Not with the environment or setting, but just the way that the story plays out too, with Silent Drifter coming in, helping out the town, providing, the advice, wisdom to help out, in this case, Charlize Theron with her goals and motives, and then see you later, I've done my job.
Like, there's no real complication to anything happen. Like, there's nothing in this movie that makes you really scratch your head and go like, wait, why are they doing this?
Right.
Wait, what's going on here? Like, I'm confused.
Yeah.
It's very straightforward, but it doesn't feel dumb. It doesn't feel simple or stupid. It feels like it knows
apt.
What it wants. It's very apt. It's appropriate.
Yeah.
It accomplishes what it needs to.
Yeah, and they fill in, and the way that you get by doing that is filling it in with action and violence, which knocked out of the park.
Yes, the fact that it is a movie that just keeps going and going, not just in terms of like the pacing, but also just the vehicles themselves, helps that quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I think you only have a couple dull moments where there's kind of like, not to say nothing's going on, because they have to keep going,
right?
Which is like a fun thing about it is anytime that they slow it down for the audience, they're still pushing, progressing, moving inch by inch to their goal.
The only time the movie really ever kind of stops, literally and metaphorically, is when they reach Charlize Theron's like family, basically, when they get to like the power tower or whatever.
Yeah.
And they explain to her that like, oh, you already passed the green place. It's that swamp area. It's all fucked up now.
Yeah.
And, she has that moment where, like, she screams to this guy. But, like, even then, there's, like, a buildup still. Even then, it's going towards something. And, like, the revelation of, like, oh, we have to change course, Well,
and that they're still being followed. Like, that's what I really liked about it, is that at no point in your head are they safe? Mm-hmm. You just don't know how much time they have.
Yeah. It's almost like the personification of that idea of you get $1 million, but there's this killer snail that if it touches you, you die.
There's 2 movies that are like that.
Yeah, there's that It Follows movie, I think, is kind of like built around that premise.
Yep.
Maybe recommendation. Maybe I'll just watch it. I don't know.
That one's always right here.
The little más o menos.
Yeah, I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and I think it's about as many times as I need to see it.
Gotcha.
You know what it's like? It's like the one movie that we saw with the arm.
With the arm.
Yeah, remember the horror film with the arm?
Oh, Talk to Me?
Talk to Me. It's like that. You could probably watch Talk to Me 2 or 3 times and then you're tapped out.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Going back to sort of the character dynamics in this movie, one of the things that it does so masterfully, in my opinion, is the ability to, just through the character's actions, convey authentically that these characters are going through like this weird shared bonding experience to where like they start out very adversarial. Like Max and Furiosa are just trying to kill each other when they first
Trust
encounter
is
each
not
other.
something easy to come by in the wasteland.
No, not at all. And so then like there's moments where like if it was physically possible, they would have killed each other. Like the gun doesn't go off, or like she misses like the stab or whatever. But as the movie slowly progresses, just through their actions, there's like this lived in energy that they have after like a certain point where they're like, I guess we're just like helping each other now.
Symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I absolutely dig what it's doing, because like, you hear about like the onset differences that Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy had. I guess they didn't really care for each other that much when they were making this film, which...
Oh, like actual people?
Yeah. Like they were having a hard time working together, which is kind of understandable when you have a production like this that is...
blowhards.
I mean, that's not an unfounded statement at all. But it does say something to the effect where like they do start out very adversarial, and then like as the movie goes along, they basically like maybe not exactly like best friends, but like they understand each other. They reach a point where like, yeah, I would probably risk my life to save this person in a way, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. I like how they did that.
Yeah,
it's super awesome.
No, it's one of the things that I was trying to pay attention to, because I'd seen Furiosa before it, and now I'm watching Mad Max, in Lifetime Friday when I did this. The trust element, how long, what events take place to help build that trust? Because obviously trust isn't something that's just handed over, especially in these times, nor is it something, it's something that could easily be broken. And watching them, the nice thing that I really, just the central focus of survival and Morton Joe is we're just running away from him. That's the devil that we have to continuously try to help each other, but we both have these alternative motives that we're doing. But I think Max starts to realize, like, he's the cop, and he's been broken too.
It harkens back to that first monologue that he has.
Yeah.
The narration where, like, I used to fight for a righteous cause. And then the movie is about him, like, fighting for a righteous cause.
He kind of discovered, he has a hard time, like, there's a thimble of, they talk about hope a lot in this thing.
Yes.
Or at least towards the end. And there's a thimble of hope that he has for himself to do the right thing again too, and you feel like that first fight that they have, he is literally like, all right, you guys just get in the truck whenever we get to this place. I'm fucking out. To a point where eventually he's like, all right, this is my duty. This is, if I find a purpose in the wasteland here, it is to do this and stand by those that are unjustly, taken advantage of. And he's not doing it necessarily for the people at the Citadel. It's literally just helping out Charlie Theron. All right, Furiosa. All right, just because I don't want to keep saying her name. All right.
It's a mouthful.
Oh my God. Yeah. And yes. You get to that. He's really just helping her out. Right.
Yeah.
And then the brides. But he's taking them under their wing. And she also recognizes that now it may be empty and, the green place doesn't exist. I'm going to have Max help me get to my ultimate goal and achievement, because they've gone through, some of the survival stuff that they have to do, or the fight scenes where, they got to help each other out. And it's really just built around survival, right? Like, it's not like a strategy of a sport play, or like working in the city or anything like that. It's literally, if I don't take this knife out of your side, you're going to keel over and die, and the truck's going to stop.
Yeah. It's the same nature of the movie itself, in which, like, it keeps going and going, and, like, they can't really deal with the deeper implications of what they're doing. They just kind of have to recognize it in the moment.
Yeah. And within themselves of what,
yes,
hey, I can take that olive branch.
And, like, this movie is also just very much about, like, the notion of not just redemption for Max in the ability to find that righteous cause, but also the redemption of Nux, going from this, like, fanatical war boy to someone who does utilize, like, their last moments in his life for a purpose, like a good purpose, to like actually help someone.
He breaks that group identity that he had.
Yes.
And he starts to discover, like, oh yeah, I did like these things, and I am a person. Versus literally doing everything. At the beginning, Morton Joe looked at me. Can you believe that? He didn't look at you. Yes, he looked right at me. He made eye contact. Like, that's all he was living for.
The thrill of the identity that he is just living symbiotically through Immortan Joe is, like, the only life that he knows. Because, like, when he's, like, sitting out, not going to, the war party or whatever, he's just kind of like a lifeless sack, being given blood from Tom Hardy. And then, like, the soonest chance he has of possibly going on the road, it, like, revitalizes him.
Yeah.
Gives him, like, that weird sense of purpose, in sacrifice for his great leader. And then, as it goes along, it's like, oh shit, like, there are people who might care about me on a non-power dynamic level, that I'm not just, like, some fucking pawn.
Yeah.
That's why I really like the relationship that he has with Riley KO, as kind of surface level as it is, it still serves that purpose of, like, oh, this is giving him something a little bit more to kind of chew on. So I thought that was great. Speaking of Immortan Joe, let's talk about him for a bit of time.
Okay.
His introduction is, I think, one of the better introductions for a movie villain in a lot of different movies. Like, because they introduce him, and he's getting the powder, and you can already tell like his skin's falling apart.
Oh, it's disgusting.
It's so fucking. He's got like these boils, and like it's so overly stretched out and everything.
I couldn't tell you the type of theme it fell into, but it was a weird like neo. I honestly I have a hard time. Like that's where this movie becomes a little unique for me.
Yeah,
because it's hard to pinpoint what exactly it was going for, but I think it hit the mark on how it wanted to make me feel.
Oh yeah, it makes you feel uncomfortable to just look at him and how he must feel on a day-to-day basis. Like despite all the, because like, do you ever like look at someone and think, if I switched bodies with this person, how would I physically feel from the onset of being in that person's skin? And I get that sense when I look at Immortan Joe. Because like, it must just be painful for you to exist, you know?
Maybe. God knows what's getting pumped into...
Having all these things hooked up. Like, he's got his weird fucking growling mask. And like, the way his hair, like his skin is just falling apart. They've got to like strap this fucking weird ab suit onto him to like, make him look ripped.
I can't imagine what drugs was getting pumped into his body to keep him going, and compound that with just how far his mind's gone into madness
and how into it he is. Because like,
well, he's
he's got to put up a veneer, right? He's got to put on a show for his war boys, but like still he's the one out there doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Despite like, you know, how much he uses his war boys for like sacrifice and pawns, he'll go out there and be in the fucking car himself if he needs to be.
Yeah, the next one that they make's got to be his rise to power.
That'd be interesting.
Between that and Furiosa, I've just sat there and like, and we'll get into it a little bit more with Furiosa, but like seeing kind of like how the power dynamic plays out for him to get to what he got to. So curious.
Yeah, and like there's a bit of fun in like trying to figure out like how did this come about? What's his relationship like with the bullet farmer and the people eater? And you know, they touch on a little bit of that in Furiosa, but not enough to where like it shows its hand completely.
Right.
Which I appreciate. Fun fact, the actor who portrayed Immortan Joe, Hugh Keys Byrne, is also the main villain in the first Mad Max movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he plays a different character. It's not like a continuation thing,
right?
But it's just a nice little thing that George Miller was like, "Hey, you want to come on for Mad Max 4, mate? I got a part that'll rock your teeth, you know, that'll shimmer your tits."
Didn't George Miller? He did like Formula 1, 2 or something. Like he came out with a couple shitty movies.
So you want to know which movie he is also known for that's not Mad Max?
It's like a Disney or a kids film.
Happy Feet.
Yep.
He did Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2, and he did Babe Pig in the City in 1998.
It's like how?
He also did, I think it was called 3,000 Years of Longing, that movie with Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba.
Yeah. It actually had a unique premise to it, if I remember.
Yeah, it looked interesting. That's the movie he did between Fury Road and Furiosa.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his filmography. It's mostly just Mad Max.
Sure. I mean, that's
Happy Feet.
It's kind of what you got to hang your hat on, right?
I mean, that's not, to be real though, that's not a bad legacy at all to have.
No.
Like, just to have Fury Road as a legacy in itself, as a single movie, would be enough to just dine on for the rest of your life, I would think, right?
Yeah, well...
Like, maybe not even financially, just like, I'm the guy who fucking made Fury Road.
That's where I get, like, you have your big directors that can kind of, maybe not necessarily, they can hop into different... They have the same theme, but they can hop into different elements of that theme. Mm-hmm. You know, where this one just feels like he just kind of created this whole universe. It feels like he's kind of more of like a one hitter, you know, maybe the guy that had like a really hell of a haymaker, but only did like 10 fights.
Or like he's one of those guys that has found his thing and he's good at his thing.
Yeah.
And he just wants to stick with his thing that he's good at.
That's why I'm a little, but he nails it, you know, like he does a great job.
Absolutely.
So, you know, there are people that thought they had their thing and don't do a great job with it.
Richard Kelly. Sorry, did I say something while I was coughing?
Don't you own all of his films?
No.
Not yet.
I don't even think I own Donnie Darko, which is a film that I love. But yeah, no. He threw a bone to his
Sam
co-star or whatever.
There was a great point that was brought up from a fellow listener about how this was shot, and he talked about it being shot on the X and Y axis. So a lot of the action, it's either straight on from side to side, on that X axis, or you can look at it straight on, kind of like I would say on the Y axis, just with what's going on around it. But they filmed it in such a manner so that way they could have those jolting cuts and a lot of the different takeaways to different points in the film and get right back to where they need to be at with the action going on.
I read that Miller told John Seal, who's the cinematographer for this and for... No, I think he didn't do Furiosa because he was retired after 3,000 Years of Longing.
You can tell he didn't do it.
But he told John Seal, make sure that most everything you shoot is like center frame. Center as you can possibly. That way, when it cuts between different action scenes and different points, people can still tell what's happening. They don't have to look for what's going on.
Right. Yes, exactly. And probably to grab all of the stunts that are happening within the frame.
Mm-hmm. And it looks good. Like somehow, despite the fact that everything being so center and like very like point of view, it still looks good and stylistic. Like there's still all these cool establishing shots and like you get the scale of it and like just the adrenaline going through. Like it's enough to, and like the fact that you do see everything happening is what makes it interesting.
Heart pounding.
Because like I will say like the TV edit of it, like it doesn't really show you a whole lot in terms of like the war boys getting shot or like wiping out, or like it has to kind of quickly cut away from all the things happening. Whereas like you watch it on HBO or like you have a Blu-ray of it, or you get to see it all, and it's so glorious.
It's stunning.
It's very stunning. Like just to see the war boys go up in the storm, how they're like being flung around and like ragdolled all over the place.
That the sweeping thing, they get on the gas guzzler or whatever
the poles.
The war machine is, I think, is what they called
the war rig.
War rig, and then but the poles behind it. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 of those guys that are just going on there trying to get onto the war rig.
So apparently, there's a lot of obviously stuntmen being used in this movie, but I guess there were also a decent amount of Cirque du Soleil performers that were a part of this production. That's why I think they were the guys on the poles.
Probably.
And, I don't remember who specifically was the guitar guy. But
that's a band, or he's part of a band, or
he's like an actual musician. I think.
Yeah.
But that whole rig was real. Like him on that thing, like going in the vehicle with like the guitar and like the fucking flames. Like that was a real guitar that they hooked like a fucking flamethrower to.
It's so
which
wild.
Is insane, and it looks good. Like none of it's wasted. Like you get a good sense of the fact that like nothing in this movie feels wasted or like. For no reason other than to like just entertain you and to like serve the purpose of like the visual narrative.
Dude, this is like, it's like an entree meal that's got like 6 I'd say courses with it, but all come out at once. It's like I'm gonna dip my hand in that, like when you watch this thing, you can watch it for the story, you can watch it for the cinematography, and then you can watch it for the stunts. Friday when I was watching it, I'm like, I just want to see some of the guys on the motorcycles. Like, I want to see, like, all right, how, like, crazy was this, I mean, and some of the shit they're doing, it's really impressive that they got it on camera.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about the actors, the characters.
Okay.
I think that Tom Hardy as Max is great. I think that Charlize Theron obviously knocks it out of the park. She's very iconic in this role. I kind of think Nicholas Hoult almost steals the show in some of the scenes that he's in as Nux. It's especially like the beginning, right? When he's as part of the chase in the car, he's going like, "What a lovely day," He's like got that war boy energy going on.
I actually flipped. I am more so like at the beginning too cartoony, and then when he actually like. Oh man, I do serve a purpose.
Yeah, when he gets a little bit of humanity and like perspective.
Yeah, that's when I actually was like, that's a pretty big flip. And then it makes you appreciate more of what he did in the beginning. He was awesome. I mean, like if I hit between the 3, mean, they're all kind of tied for me because they all have their ups and their downs.
They have their strengths for sure.
Yeah.
And they're unique to each, because like Tom Hardy's just great at playing like almost silent, wordless brutes.
Stoic, just being stoic, dude. Just go on there and kind of have a a menacing grin on your face.
Yeah, he does a lot while just staring at you.
He's a good Rock to have in that point.
Rockatansky.
Yeah, he's a good Rockatansky to have. Probably better than the first one. Well, maybe not. I don't know.
I will have to see for myself.
Yeah, same. It's been a while. But to be emotional, it's going on with the two other characters that are playing, some heavy parts with what's going on in their lives, to kind of maintain that idle course for us to hold on to a little bit, to not fall one way or another. I think this thing does a great job emotionally keeping you not necessarily kind of baseline,
Yeah.
but you don't go with the swells that you have with Holt and with Furiosa. Because Max, and maybe that's just who I gravitated towards, stays pretty even keel the whole time.
Can I read off? This is what, according to Wikipedia, some of the finalists for the part of Max that were up for it in case Hardy didn't get it. So obviously Hardy.
Yep.
Armie Hammer
Sucks.
Jeremy Renner. That feels out of place.
Well, you say that, but
I say that, but it was like around the time when they were trying to make him like a big action guy. Like he was in Mission Impossible 4 and 5, and he was in that weird offshoot Bourne movie.
Yeah, that's the one that I was actually thinking of.
And obviously he's a Marvel guy.
He's kind of, but he's got a stoic face that he could probably hold it. I just don't the charisma, and probably he's a little bit more grizzled than Hardy.
Maybe, I don't know. I always picture him as like kind of a little guy. Like he doesn't play big on screen like Tom Hardy does.
Agreed. They'd probably have him jumping around a lot more than what Tom Hardy did. I'll say that.
Yeah. He would have been a little bit more physical with it.
Yeah.
He would have been doing flips and shit.
Yeah.
Like Jean-Claude Van Damme. Michael Fassbender, which I honestly think you're not a fan of that idea.
That's him and Hardy are like neck and neck for me.
I feel like that would have been more towards how he would have played it, mirroring Mel Gibson, because they kind of have like a weird similar like meanness to them that I think that Fassbender could have matched very easily.
I think they would have had more dialogue with him, because I think he would have been able to really dig his teeth into the wasteland.
Yeah.
But then again, too, I feel like he is a theater guy, so he might have walked in and been like, this is way too cartoony and outlandish for me to even like more like with the X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
Where he just would have thrown in the towel.
Joel Kinnaman, who I think if they would have went with him, Charlize Theron would have overpowered him even more.
Who's Joel Kinnaman?
He is I'll show you a picture. He plays Rick Flag in the Suicide Squad movie.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, no. That one yes.
Heath Ledger and Eric Bana, which I feel like they would have played him a little more like kind of leaning into like the insanity, unstable element of it.
Bana would have been fun.
He probably would have brought like some Chopper energy to it.
That's what I'm thinking.
Like playing it a little bit more like on the not goofy, but like just having more fun with it, I guess.
And he's Australian, right? He's from the Outback, so
mate.
So like I think
in his backyard they filmed it.
He probably would have been like that. Sorry to pull from Heath, but like some of that Joker energy of a little bit more chaos, and I know I'm living in a world that has no rules. Yeah, that's what I'm Bana. I think Bana would have been able to play into a little bit of like, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy?
He would have embraced like the apocalypse of it.
Yeah.
And then this is the last one, which will blow your fucking mind, for better or worse. Eminem.
What?
The rapper Eminem, Marshall Mathers, he was a finalist to be Mad Max, which would have been disastrous in my opinion. I feel like that would have been distractingly weird.
Yeah, because I think actors with, like you said, the face, not.
Plus, he's kind of a small dude. Like it's kind of like that Renner thing. I don't know if he could like fill in the boots of Max.
It's hard to, with the size and the mass of the guy. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I'd have to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because Gibson's not a big dude.
No, especially not back in the early movies.
So if you watch them, you might be able to see some of that physicality that just comes with being stoic. You know, I think that there's a certain sense of authority that comes with just having confidence. You know, where it's the puffer fish. You know, I mean, it just makes it feel bigger.
I guess I would just have trouble picturing Eminem playing a former cop.
I don't think Eminem could do it. I think you'd have one look the whole time, and it'd be like, I don't know, is he mad or happy?
Is he mad? Is he about to rap and freestyle?
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
I don't think he'd be good with the markings and some of the.
Is he spitting bars at Immortan Joe?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
that would have been weird. Charlize Theron as Furiosa, obviously, iconic part, and I think one of the best female characters in action movies, period, I would say, with confidence. And, you know, this can be a good segue into what we were touching on earlier, like the sort of feminist themes going on in this movie. I think that they're very well handled.
Oh, yeah.
There's movies that come out where, like, they feel like they fumble or, like, they're very patronizing towards trying to appeal to more feminist attributes with people watching, where like it's pandering. Sometimes it feels pandering, whereas like this it feels very naturalistic. It feels like like this is how they would feel, this is what they would do, this feels natural to me. There's
if you walked into 3 different bars and rounded up 20 dudes and said, what do you think a woman would do in a post-apocalyptic world, you know, you'd probably have 3 really bad answers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think there's any. It kind of flipped the script on what you would think something would happen. Like you're looking at a woman in there, and you're like, oh, subservient. She's gonna do whatever the guy says. She couldn't make it on her own in the wasteland. And then they go to the green place, or they move past it. They find the wild women, you know, and they're totally self-sufficient.
Yeah,
they totally could have made it, you know. And I think that was a really fun part that I liked, is when they're going back into the chaos. They have these gals that have been part of the wasteland, have adapted, grown, you know, evolved with it. And it's, hey, like, we can survive too. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not, we don't need to rely on you to give us the water. Like, we've been out here, we can live, we can do this. And it's really fun because they also provided the confidence that some of the brides needed to have, because there was points where you're like, I'm not sure if they don't want to go back, but I also think they don't think they can survive without the Citadel and Immortan Joe. Mm-hmm. You know, and to provide that little bit of, hey, whatever environment we're in, you guys can totally make it. You know, don't let anyone push you down or say that you can't do this or that. And it's really fun when they go back and they have the older ladies with them and they're helping them kick ass, and you know, but they're also dying too. It's not like it was we need to be gentle with these characters. You know, It was, hey, anything happens out here, and I appreciated that too, because it didn't cater to feminists. Like, we're going to treat them like they're women. It's everyone's a human here trying to survive.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't feel forced. It feels like this is kind of like a bit of what the movie's sort of built around, while not feeling like it's a wink and a nod to the camera, and being like, hey, look at how progressive we're being. Give us some points. You know, there's no like virtue signaling or anything in this movie going on. I
think it could have been any group out there that they could have found. I mean, it could have been, you know, it could have been a bunch of teenagers, kids. I think it's just more so of survival and adapting and breaking down some social norms of, this is how we think these groups would handle this, and just saying, no, everyone can adapt and evolve to a certain point.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies where like the example of them being air quotes feminist is like them looking at the camera and telling you that they're being feminist, whereas like this movie, it just has them do things.
Yeah,
it just shows it through the action, which is, you know, in line with everything else in the movie. It's just showing you through the action.
Yeah, I mean, Furiosa finally stepping up. I mean, it really kicks off, and you can kind of tell that it's going to go in that direction. Like the first time I saw it, I definitely was like, nice. And then the second time I watched, I was like, oh, that's why Furiosa is getting introduced really early on and saying, hey, I'm taking lead and we're getting out of here.
Yeah.
You know,
almost sort of her saying, I'm taking lead of the movie as well.
Yeah. And and her and Charlize's acting in it, I could go here or there with it. I liked her. And I think it's just a little bit of a hard role to play, and I
think she's great. I think that given this new movie coming out, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done between that movie and this movie in terms of the characterization a little bit and how it plays on screen, but we can get into that with Furiosa.
Yeah.
Was there anything else we wanted to talk about? Was there anything you didn't really like about this movie? I mean, we've been going on for a bit.
Have we? I've not noticed. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're getting to that mark, but I don't think there was too much else I wanted to say. I mean, the music's great. Love the fucking soundtrack of this. The cinematography's awesome. I think he managed to get John Seal, I think that's his name, right? The cinematographer, out of retirement. Yeah.
Might have got him an Oscar now, too.
I think it did.
Yeah.
There's a lot of production Oscars that this thing won.
I think it won 4 awards, something like that. Maybe nominated for 6.
It was nominated for 10. It won 6.
Yeah.
Including Best Film, or no, that was from the National Board of Review.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I can look that stuff up while.
Yeah,
you maybe go into some other things.
Well, when you talk about the foundation, so like if you looked at it, you've got the story sitting right there, pretty simple story. You look at the pillars of the cinematography, the music, the characters, and the writing, or the acting and the writing. All of it got nailed, and then you have the vision of it sitting on top of where do we want this thing to go. Not necessarily certain what points it was trying to make. A lot to take away from it. Things that I didn't like, there's not a whole lot. I think the only thing that I maybe was getting a little repetitious is just some of that, not necessarily the action and the stunts, but the fact that we are on a war rig going in a straight line trying to get to a certain point. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, though, some of the moments for me that were dull, I think it's just because I'm being fed so much stimulus and my brain is starting to get brain fog with when it does slow down of being all right, now you got to think again.
Yeah, it is a lot being thrown at you, both visually and just with everything the content of the film itself.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that it won Best Editing, which I would hope for, because I guess his wife edited the movie, and she had 3 months to watch the footage before she could even edit it. That's why post-production took so long. That's why it was wrapped up in 2012 and didn't come out until 2015.
This just talk about it. This feels like a very family get the gang together. We're just going to make a kick-ass movie that we want.
Yeah. It also won Best Sound Mixing and Sound Editing.
Yeah.
Which is no surprise. Best Production Design. I would fucking hope so with all the work they put into it. Makeup and hairstyling and costume design.
Cinematography did not get it.
No. What did that go to? That went to The Revenant, which, I mean, if anything's going to fucking beat Mad Max, it is going to be that movie.
Saw The Revenant in that theater as well. I'd seen 3 movies that I can remember very distinctively in that Ferris theater.
The Revenant is one of the movies that I think I saw it was one of the first movies I saw more than once in a theater.
Yeah.
Because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah.
Love that movie. And the other nominations for cinematography, if you're curious, are Carol, which directed by our boy Todd Haynes of May December, The Hateful Eight, Mad Max Fury Road, and Sicario, which tough
what a year to
fucking category.
We've talked about Sicario on here, right?
Not officially. Gideon watched that recently, and he loved it.
Which is shocking, but also I would say a testament to that film.
That might be a guest episode.
Yeah, out into the violence was actually served a purpose. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Juarez, we're going up. Man, Juarez.
Speaking of Gideon, I'm going to go on a bit of a offshoot a bit. He said that he would potentially guest if we did an episode covering the Spy Kids trilogy.
Tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. Actually,
scheduling would be hard, I think, but we could make it work.
Would be me like watching those films. I come in here and be like, seen 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
You guys being like a couple years younger than me and your childhood movies versus mine.
Well, here's the thing. I've never seen them. So it would be...
I'm not going to say anything on the pod. I'll tell you off the pod.
Okay. It would be him like presenting it to us. But, maybe...
It'd be Gideon talking the whole time and us just nodding going, yep.
I'm okay with that. I'm cool with taking a break. If he wants to take over, that's fine. So that was pretty much Mad Max Fury. I mean, I don't think I really have too much in the way of criticism of this. If anything, I think that the first 30 minutes are like an absolute masterpiece. Like if it was just that, it would be like a full 10 out of 10 movie for me. And then I think the rest of it is also pretty great, but it does need to have those necessary narrative beats in it to make it a full-fledged movie that you're invested in. So I get why they do it, but man, that 30 minutes just like takes the cake away for me.
Dude, them rushing up to the war rig. And just trying to, and you kind of, and we as an audience really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm very surprised at us that we've gone probably an hour almost talking about this movie, and we haven't once said, "Witness me."
Yeah,
which I had to throw that out there. So you want to get into ratings?
Yeah, we can get into ratings.
All right. I guess I can go first. This is a very fucking solid 9 out of 10.
Nice.
I absolutely adore this movie. I think this has near endless rewatch value. Like I watched this probably like 3 weeks apart from the last time I saw it, and it's still it gets me going. Like it's one that I want to show people that haven't seen it before. I think that's a mark of a very good, well-made, well-crafted movie. So that's my final thoughts on it. I don't think I can really go any deeper than that.
Well, I mean, we were talking about before the pod, cheeseburger, greasy, want to see some action. And
but this is almost like a gourmet burger. Like the burger still is going to have the same health value as something like, it's just a mindless action movie. But this is like the most well-crafted burger.
I think you can watch this thing just for entertainment value alone. Yeah, no.
Yes, you can.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's also one of those movies where, like, if you want to get more out of it, you also can as well.
Yeah, it does have some themes in there that can be touched on if you want to kind of dive in, because they just leave it up to you.
It's
to
there
interpret.
for you if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, like, this is a 9 out of 10. This is a 9 out of 10. This thing is about really close to a 10 out of 10. I think the dull moments for me are when I get sucked out of it is when I feel like I'm watching a film. There are, like you talked about, the first 30 minutes, if they can continue that energy throughout. But with that being said, I mean, it's kind of, you got the scales of justice there. Like, you want to have all this action here.
I am the scales of justice.
What's that from?
That's the Bullet Farmer. When he goes blind and he's like yelling about being the scales of justice.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's probably why he's talking, because it's like, hey, we got to get some narration going in here and some dialogue going, and
also because he's got the blindfold, he kind of looks like the scales of justice.
Yeah, when he's holding out his 2 fucking M6s or whatever they are.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
love it.
So like you have like there's a balancing act there that this one, it really does a great job doing. I just think that it teeters one way versus other a little too much, and that too much is just the start knockdown. That's literally about it. And so outside of that, yeah, hell yeah.
Anytime I go to watch it, I have the thought like, maybe this will be the time, maybe this will be the moment that I bump it up to a 10, and then like after it's done, I'm like, love it. There's a 9 for you.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple things they could probably trim out and it's literally, I think 5 minutes for me.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there that they could trim out 5 minutes that might take it out. But outside of that, yeah, every time I'm kind of with you. It's like, oh man, I'm ready to watch this. And then I get done, I go, man, that's just a movie I could throw on in 3 months and just let it roll,
Well, speaking of letting it roll.
Yeah.
How about we roll on into Furiosa? A Mad Max Saga.
A Mad Max Saga, which I had no idea. I mean, when I saw it coming out, I kind of figured that they were going to touch on her a little bit, her origin story. And then it came out and it said Saga right on the front, too. right? Opening title.
Yeah, I have things to say about that after you give your summation, but yeah, we'll get into it.
Okay, so we got Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. All right, starring Anna Taylor-Joy as Furiosa, the titular Furiosa. Chris Hemsworth as Dementis. Tom Burke, Praetorian Jack. I kind of like this character. And then a whole bunch of other people in here that I don't think you'd recognize.
We should say that Lacey Holm portrays Immortan Joe because the original actor Hugh Keays-Byrne passed away in 2021.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
So
I was actually because I was looking for the guy. I was like, what was his name again?
Mm-hmm. I think I butchered the pronunciation, but there it is.
Yeah,
it's out there.
It's close.
Yeah.
So the movie starts off with it starts off with, hey, we're in a saga, so we're gonna get the origin story of Furiosa as we kind of lead into events. Also, spoiler alerts going forward. Do I do that after the thing? Anyways.
You do it whenever you want.
Yeah, hell yeah. Spoiler alerts, baby. Yeah, so it starts out with her, very young gal, searching for food in the green place. The green place that I had forgotten about since watching Mad Max. It has been a number of years since I'd seen it. And so some bikers come in, not necessarily they're not war boys. I don't remember what the clan they're a part of or affiliated with. But they find some food. They capture Furiosa. The ladies of the group protect their own. So we already get Mama Furiosa running in to save her gal. She ends up getting kidnapped. Unfortunately, the mom passes away. And
the mom passes away.
Yeah, it's probably the nicest thing to say.
Peaceful way to put it.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, not the way that she went. And
Hero bitch says passed away unexpectedly.
Chris Hemsworth pops on the screen that I didn't know, playing Dementis, and we just go throughout the story of Furiosa and how she gains her title into Imperator. How do you say it?
Imperator,
I think
is how they pronounce it.
Yeah, how she eventually climbs the ladder of the wasteland,
climbs the platform. Spoiler alert, after her arm gets severed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah.
I'm Imperator Furiosa.
She screamed that out?
Yeah, when she's trying to get on the platform.
Oh. Yeah, there's a couple things in here that I might not remember.
Like maybe that's an indication of how we feel about this movie, but, we can get into it.
Yes, we will. So, because I'm very curious. This is the one that I did not have. I looked. I do have a star for it, but that star could change. Yeah, Kyle, viewing experience, where are we at?
I mean, I touched on it a little bit before we recorded, but I saw this in a very small theater in the middle of buttfuck nowhere in Michigan, otherwise known as Whitehall. Shout out to Whitehall. Nobody's listening from there because nobody lives there. I truly believe that nobody lives in Whitehall.
It's a weird town of very what do you call the greasers and the
the Sharks or what?
No,
not
Outsiders.
West Side Story. Yeah,
Outsiders. West Side Story.
Sorry, I went to the Spielberg option, I guess. Yeah. No, it's literally just a gas station, a movie theater, and a used car lot.
I saw there. A little bit more.
Right, there might be a Culver's there, which is like the best thing there besides the movie theater. Yeah, no, my viewing experience, it's not anything too special. I saw this a couple days ago. I was the only one in the theater besides a gentleman who was sat at the very front who
odd choice
wanted a recliner seat. More power to him. I guess he likes watching blown out Anya Taylor-Joy's face on screen, just like wide as can be. And yeah, I mean it was a fun time. It was a good time. It made me wish I had saw Fury Road in theaters. That's for sure.
Oh, well, there's another tell.
Right. But I don't. It's one of those. This is going to be one of those discussions where like we're going to formulate our thoughts as we kind of go along. So
agreed.
One of the things that was the most apparent to me is obviously I don't think this movie is as good as Fury Road.
Agreed.
I think that it does kind of hold as its own thing. But the weird thing is is that it retains so much of the DNA, obviously, of Fury Road. I mean, it's touching on like one of the main characters from the story.
Yeah.
Not only that, but it's also still trying to retain that sort of high octane action energy of Fury Road,
yes,
while at the same time concerning itself a lot more with a character focused narrative, but it's still trying to balance that with like the action and the overall like nature of it being like go go go, which you know, obviously this is about Furiosa and like her backstory, being taken as a child and her growing into the character that we know from Fury Road,
right?
And that takes years to go through in the timeline of the movie. And so because of that, the movie has to take the time to stop and say like, this is what's going on, this is what's happening. And that mixed with the goal of trying to incorporate that like high octane action, it feels kind of clunky.
Oh yeah,
it feels a little structurally disjointed because of that.
Yes.
And it's one of those where like I don't know if they got the best version of the movie that they could, or if there's something within this film that maybe they could have dug out, either going one way with it, having it be like Fury Road in that like there's not really much of a time jump anywhere, except like you get to see Furiosa like played by Anya Taylor-Joy in this like one big action scene. Or if you really go character focused with it and really have like the dialogue and the story beats and the plot necessary to really touch on her as a character, because like much like Tom Hardy in Fury Road, Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't really speak much at all in this movie.
No. Which kind of gets annoying when you're character focused.
That's my point exactly, right? It's like, it's one of those things where it feels like they want to have their cake and eat it too. Where like, I don't know if they can necessarily have both with the way that they've done it. And, you know, there's certain elements of this movie that like, you know, we'll also criticize like on their own, like some of the visuals and like the cinematography to me obviously isn't like as iconic as Fury Road, but
not
like
even close.
Just on a story structure level, this movie kind of feels underwhelming from the get-go, especially considering it's living in the shadow forever of Fury Road.
Well, you have Fury Road. So this is where I was like, I don't know what necessarily I'm getting into. There's really two things that just popped out that I was like, not sure where this is going to go. Outside of it saying it was a saga or an epic saga, right?
A Mad Max Saga.
Yeah, and I think they let out, like I saw that and I was like, okay. And then you kind of like, get the feel that it's going to be a 5-act structure, which, whatever.
Which it is. I think there's like 5 literal title cards that come up and tell you like what part of the story they're on.
Yeah, and that's so, which once again, way different from Mad Max, Fury Road. One is the green screen. Obviously, the green place is a giant green screen. So you have the first movie that used 10% of its film as a green screen, and the first shot of this is green screen. I'm like, okay, I don't know how much I'm vibing with this. This is not going to be what we saw before.
Right.
You know?
There's a lot more obvious special effects going into this, which, I mean, if you read about the production of Fury Road, like, sure, maybe I can't necessarily blame George Miller for wanting to play it a little more safe with this movie.
You
get
have
it out
to.
quicker. But at the same time, you do sacrifice a little bit of that, like, ooh, that flavor wind that Fury Road had, you know?
Which is, they hit you over the head right away, which is, I guess it helps you out as an audience member going, all right, we're transitioning from that type of film. The other one was Chris Hemsworth. His accent was very distracting to me. I don't know if you had that issue.
I mean, I thought he was one of the better parts of this movie, and I find it funny that you know, he is doing the voice because he is Australian.
Yeah, but
this is like one of the few movies that he's in where like he gets to do his native accent.
Watch this is what killed me. So and I only want to touch on this for a second so we can get into other things, because I was very curious about it, because like I said, a lot of the time I try not to have accents hold me up too much. Okay, I watched
Shailene Woodley from Ferrari, yes.
Okay, which I have to see.
Elizabeth Olsen from Age of Ultron.
Yeah,
and
like,
forward.
There's a couple times where it depends on, but there's side characters, I'd say. I mean, this is like he is holding up the weight of the film too, and he's really fun in it.
Yeah, he's having a good time.
I'm listening to him, and I didn't realize he was Australian. So I thought he was British, and that's why they gave him like this really weird accent, because it's almost like he was not trying to be Australian in this thing.
I mean, I think he's still doing like a weird voice and a performance, and obviously like the fucking nose prosthetic probably has something to do with that too.
Could have been, but all I'm saying is I told Jasmine, I said he's British, like I don't know why they had him in this weird accent. They gave him like he's trying to do something. I guess I don't really, and I eventually I kind of came, I was like, all right, he's doing it, you know. And then he popped up on the Steve Colbert show or whatever. It popped up on my Facebook, and Jasmine told me, she goes, he's Australian. I was like, I don't think is he? He's fucking Australian. Yeah, he has a more Australian voice when he's talking normal than he didn't. And I'm like, why didn't they just let him lean into his own thing?
So I think, and you know, this is kind of like devil's advocate, right? In defense of the choice.
Yes.
Is because there's so many characters in this franchise that are just heightened to the point of being like over the top, almost cartoon like.
Yeah.
I think it's a choice of him doing that voice as a way to distinguish himself as a heightened character and something that stands out in the movie, right? Whereas like if he was maybe doing his regular Australian accent, he might have just sounded like every other bloke in the movie that was like beneath him as a henchman. Whereas like him doing that voice to me is like part of what makes his character stand out. Even if it's like feels like it doesn't fit, even if it's like a little wonky, it's still unique, and I still appreciate it on that level. Plus, you could argue that it's the character doing an accent. It's the character putting on a voice to distinguish himself, to give himself like a weird level of confidence, because that's kind of what his character is, right? Like he's someone who has way too much confidence in the things that he does. Even when he fucks up, he's still like trying to just plow through it and be stern in his ways.
So, and what can get us into, you know, segueing into the wasteland itself or wherever we want to go, I also was playing devil advocate with myself and saying, because it's post-apocalyptic, cultures blend. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And you know,
language breaks down.
Jasmine was kind of
changes.
Yeah, like your dialects and all that. And I said, well, if Michigan overtook Alabama in 40 years, I doubt there'd be a southern accent in Alabama. Right? Mm-hmm. So I did weigh it down. I just I thought it was wonky and silly, and it sounds like you picked up on it too, but it played into the character.
I think it does.
And with the post-apocalyptic setting and cultures blending or being overtaken, yeah, because I don't think they give a year of when this is all occurring. So
no,
I give him, it's grace on my end from it, but I couldn't believe that I heard him talk in real life and was like, he sounds more Australian. I have no idea what it was. It sounded like an American trying to talk like an Australian.
Yeah, it's like your American uncle trying to do a bad impersonation of like Steve Irwin or something.
Yeah. That's what I was like. I eventually was like, I don't know what nationality he is.
Like, good day, mate. Hey, we're gonna have some crocodile and shrimp on the barbie.
That's way more Australian than he was in this thing. Like, he wasn't. I don't exactly know how to talk about the dialect.
He reminded me of like a bird. Like a large bird man with like his giant nose and like the way he was speaking.
He cut off like
and the way he like carried himself. He's like hopping around all over the place. He's got the fucking cape. He kind of looks like a weird birded out version of Thor. You know?
Yeah. It was very odd and striking, but it's
very striking, which is what I like.
Yeah, he did a great job being a villain in this thing.
Yeah, he's good. I think anytime like he and Anya Taylor-Joy are on screen, I think it works very well. And I mean, you don't really get that much of them together, but like,
or her doing anything.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to bring up too, is that like, I had no idea that it was going to take an hour for Anya Taylor-Joy to pop up in this movie. Because like, obviously like her character is throughout the entire film, but for the first hour, it's played by, Alila Brown. Alila Brown portrays Furiosa as a child and teenager, which I will say, I don't know if they had any like sort of special effects going into it or if they just found a kid that kind of looks like her, but I feel like the casting choice for her was really good.
I think
to like match with Anya Taylor-Joy.
After the first act, they get into the second act, and that's when I was like, "Is this Anya Taylor-Joy? What's going on?" Because I wasn't
like, it feels like she has like the similar kind of eyes and like facial
look
structure.
just like her, like a little mini version of her.
Yeah. And I've looked up a picture of the actress, and it really doesn't look that much like Anya Taylor-Joy. So I'm wondering
prosthetics, man.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I'm wondering if they had like some makeup stuff or like some special effects going into.
That's probably why they
look like
carved up, like, you know, put the thing over her mouth. It's like we just got to get the eyes right. You know.
Yeah. But either way, I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah. Not giving her any lines throughout the whole film, maybe not.
Yeah, and that's where the biggest gripe of this movie comes in for me, right? Is like the juxtaposition of wanting to retain the Mad Max spirit of having a stoic, silent protagonist, but then also wanting it to be character focused.
Yeah.
Is something that, you know, I don't think they nailed it.
You got to have a lot of heavy lifting around the character, and Hemsworth tries. And
Hemsworth is like, he's the character that we're with for pretty much like the first 45 minutes of the movie, right? Like it's almost like he steps in and becomes the protagonist, almost in a way that Furiosa does in Fury Road.
Yeah. Obviously,
he's a more villainous character, but he's still the one that we're with because he's the one with agency. Yeah. Furiosa, for the most part, in like the first 20-25 minutes, is just stuck there. So you're
45 minutes. I mean, she's stuck there until he hands her over.
Right. Like, so you're just kind of like with him.
Yeah.
And like you get to experience like his character through her eyes and like everything going on. And then, you know, he gives her to Immortan Joe to be like his bride when she gets older. And then she escapes, disguises herself as one of the slaves, and then slowly works her way up to the ranks to become like a lieutenant / enforcer, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that in itself is kind of like an interesting angle. I'm not entirely sure how they do it in order to like keep the momentum of it, right? Because like it's broken up so much.
Yeah.
Because like obviously you get the action scene of like her beneath the truck and like the reveal of like, oh, she's a woman to Praetorian Jack or whatever.
Yep.
And then you've got like a bit of them as like a duo. It gets into that action scene where like they're at, I think they're at the bullet farm, right? When
they go
next
in
big
there.
action, like with the crane and everything.
Yep.
And then obviously the final showdown, which I mean, you know, this is a movie where like the structure of it does not favor some of the action. Like we were saying before, like the action's good. It's like well done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that pacing isn't anywhere near the level of what you would want to see out of something like Fury Road, you know?
The flow of the film is very up and down.
It stops and starts.
It's a very roller coaster ride, but instead of like on a roller coaster, there's good flow with like, all right, we're coming up to the next wave. This one feels like someone on the operating machine just stopped it.
Yeah.
And then it's kicking back up.
It wouldn't be so bad if we did get like those genuine character moments.
Yeah.
Which the closest you ever really get is like her and Praetorian Jack like holding their heads close together
on the cliff,
and like they don't really say too much. Which, you know, I don't mind that way of like telling that story if the momentum keeps going.
Yep,
that's what I liked about Fury Road. But like this, it's just like title card. It stops. It starts. It stops. It starts. It's like a roller coaster ride where like you get to the top of the hill and you wait a while, it goes down, and like halfway through it stops again.
Yeah, it slows you down and then it stops at the bottom and then it starts cranking you back up after you've been sitting there for 3 minutes. It's like kind of taking the thrill out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's and like we've been talking about that for a while, but like that's where my biggest criticism is.
I agree 100%. I mean, this thing is I think one problem that I have is that after I see a film and I kind of have like some concrete thoughts and some like, how do I feel about this? I'll go to reviews to try to help me, like maybe they can articulate what I'm feeling, you know? And this thing is like getting great reviews everywhere. I'm like, am I off on this? This is now the third film I've seen where I am like not in alignment with what I'm reading. And
I mean, to like kind of show my hand a little bit, I still think it's a good movie.
There's no doubt about that.
It's a lot of fun. I like the acting in it. I like the portrayals of the characters. I mean, really the biggest thing is the structure.
Yeah,
right?
but even that's a big thing. A flow of a film's got to be good. Like we're talking Mad Fury Road is outstanding.
Yes.
And we're like the flow of that thing's just a little off that bumps it down a star. And that thing is like relentless. And I mean the high octane energy that you feel is, I mean, it's rewarded or part of it, you know. I mean, like it has to keep that going, or else that thing would probably be like.
I mean, there might be some people who would say like, "Oh, it's a little unfair to compare this to Fury Road with the way that it's structured because this is a different thing." But
it's still the same universe.
It's still the same universe, same character, and like just like the same style, and like the fact that they are trying to retain that high octane action that keeps going, but they're not, is really what is holding it up. Like
that's
if this movie came out before Fury Road, I don't know if I would necessarily have this issue, but because this movie is made so much later and it has that legacy to follow up with, right, of Fury Road,
like, I do agree.
People going to watch this movie with the original in mind, they're not getting the same thing, and maybe that's good for them. And I still think that this is a good movie overall. But
you don't have to hold back.
I mean, there's something missing. It just feels like there's something missing,
big time. And I think that this is a fine action film, decent. Like if you take Fury Road out of this now,
the action in this movie is still better than like 90% of action movies.
Yeah, I mean,
overall
it goes well. But like when you thrust in that it's a character story, like that's when I have an issue. And the fact that we do have something to compare it to,
a character story with very little characterization.
Yeah, she doesn't. Yes, I don't know. She felt like I felt like they were like, you're going to be Mad Max. You are going to be this rock, this emotional state, but we're going to have all these traumatic influences, like kind of showing how you are, like a kid growing up. Like you come from a great home versus a broken home. You're going to have two different kids, right? And they were trying to take that and have her play in this like middle part of like, you're just going to absorb all of this emotional trauma and energy, but you're not going to really unleash it until we get to a certain point, you know? But
right
at that point, it already felt like it was coming for a while. So it's not even like a really well rewarded, like.
Well, here's what I think it partially is that in Fury Road, you get the initial conflict between the main characters and the protagonists, and that creates a dynamic that's interesting. Whereas this movie, like, the most interesting parts are with Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. Like, when their characters are, like, on opposite sides and they're, like, opposed to it, and there's, like, a dynamic there that plays off. Whereas, like, there's a certain point that this movie reaches where, like, you're just following her.
Yeah.
And, like, she gets with Praetorian Jack, and, like, there's a bit of conflict there, but, like, it's quickly resolved and they become, like, lovers.
Yeah, which is another weird thrust-in thing.
And it's, like, one of those things where you don't really get a sense of, like, the back and forth between the two because they're already on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the movies are inherently interesting because there's that conflict. And even in Fury Road, when they start working together and they start liking each other, there's still the ongoing struggle of, like, we got to get the fuck away from Immortan Joe.
Survival is one of the biggest things. And in this one, that's taken out. Mm-hmm. That is taken out. So some of that adrenaline rush of being able to keep going is almost, you feel like she's just in a really bad area, just making it, so it's no different like a waitress that was like living somewhere in a really bad spot, just getting by in life. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, yeah, survival does play in a little bit, but we can see that you are getting by. So some of the conflict that's going on, like in Fury Road, they stop, they die. Mm. She can stop. She can kind of like, hey, I'm actually a chick now, and you guys know that I'm a gal, but I can still be with you. Like, they take out some of the things that you think would create conflict, right? And they place her in just a safe enough environment that really we're just going to get somewhat of a revenge film.
Well, part of it too is like they need to have an excuse for the character to go through this big gap in time. Like, they need to have the excuse of, like, the time jump.
Yeah.
And, like, having this span of time go as long as it needs to tell the story. But, like, in doing so, it sacrifices the flow what they want to accomplish.
Right.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the scenes that I like from this movie quite a bit. Like the scene where Dementis tries to pull his dick out in front of a Morton Joe and like show his hand and like show his army, like, hey, come out here, we're gonna fight you, mate. And like, you know, they just send the one war boy, he blows them up, and it's like, any one of those war boys would have done this. Like, I think that's just such a great scene. Like,
it's fun.
Chris Hemsworth in over his head, going about this the complete wrong way.
He'd been doing it I think they'd like led up to that point that's how he's been collecting his army.
Yeah, like just sheer brute force.
But he's also like aloof, right?
He's an idiot.
Yeah.
He's
so like you're
stupid.
like you're watching this guy like, and you're like at some point this isn't gonna work. And I'm like I couldn't remember. I'm like, but does he take over the Citadel? And then when a Morton Joe walked out, that's when oh yeah, I guess it doesn't go well. And then it's just a really, hey, who wants to go? It's like, hey, no, he pointed at me. No, he pointed at me. No, you know, and then that guy just jumps.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, yeah, we've got the higher ground, Anakin. Guess what? You're toast.
Yeah. I love how Chris Hemsworth thinks he's the hottest shit in the world.
Oh, yeah. He walks.
Trying to get one up on him more. And like all those guys walk out there and they look at him like he's a child having a tantrum at a grocery store.
Yeah. He walked. I think you probably could tell that Morton Joe was smiling underneath that mask.
Like they know that this guy's not on the same level that we are.
Oh, dude, we've fended off these people. You're just another fucking ant crawling up the hill.
Yeah.
You know, like, get out of here.
I mean, the framing of the scene is good too, because like they're up in that giant cliff and they're just looking down on him.
Well, and they do a great job because they had already shown Dementis taking over other clans and
Yes.
like getting people on his side. So when he goes in there, there's an actual like, does he do this? And then he grabs the mic and starts doing his bullshit. It's like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. I didn't know how long Dementis was going to last in this thing, which is, you know, I think that's why at that point you kind of knew, oh, it's going to be a story revolving around these two characters the whole time.
I'm thinking if Dementis was in more of the middle chunk of the movie, I think that would have done this movie a lot of favors.
Or taking him out and had the struggle elsewhere.
Or just have the constant struggle, like have it be a continuous thing of like, oh shit, Dementis is like a recurring villain in Furiosa's life, that like it's a constant reminder of her mom getting killed, and then like there's the whole thing with Praetorian Jack later on, but like there's that gap in time where like he's gone for like 20 years. And then she sees him again, and then the conflict starts back up. And like I really do think that the strongest parts of this movie are that beginning and are that ending.
So we can say take out the Praetorian Jack shit.
Honestly, kind of, yeah. Like,
that's
as much as I
at.
like the guy portraying that character,
agreed,
Tom Burke, as much as I like that performance and I like the idea of it, I think it only weakens the real meat and potatoes of this movie, which is Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy.
I couldn't agree more, except with Anya Taylor-Joy. I thought she was all right in this thing. I mean, I
thought she was good. I think the energy is a little different from what Charlize Theron brings, especially when this is my other big issue with the movie, is towards the end when they like really set up the events of Fury Road by showing like the silhouette of the brides and like her sneaking them into the tanker or whatever. It's like, I could have done with like them stopping at a point where like, okay, now we can maybe believe that like 5 years pass and she becomes Charlize Theron. There's like a bit of a character shift there.
Yes.
Because like the way that Charlize Theron plays it in Fury Road is so steely and very assured, very confident.
I'm doing the right thing and I will die trying.
Yes. Yeah. It feels like she's doing it for a cause. Whereas like this one, it feels like while I like the portrayal and I like how Anya Taylor-Joy's playing the character, it feels different enough to where like she's playing this at the angle of like, I'm going to get revenge at some point. I have a little bit more emotion to me.
That's for
this character.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like
which I think it's fine if you want to do that, but then don't immediately have the events of Fury Road be on the foreground.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you got to like have her kind of wise and become more vindictive.
Vin Diesel.
Yeah, Vin Diesel, like like steely and tough and rugged.
He pulls up and like helps her beat up Chris Hemsworth. And is like,
I am Groot.
We're family.
Yeah, yeah.
Furiosa, we're family.
Yeah, that plays into the flow and the energy of the thing, with it kind of being a like you said, a juxtaposition or a contrast with what we're getting around the wasteland going into her emotional state. And that's why I get it feels like there's a lot more shit weighing on her that she just wasn't going to release, and we really don't ever get to see that release, and we don't
know.
And
you see it a little bit with like her confrontation with Chris Hemsworth at the end, but even then, it's
she just
one of those
stares at him.
Yes, exactly, right? Like there's emotion there, but at the same time, they want to retain that stoicism that Charlize Theron has in Fury Road.
She talked in Fury Road, and she had passion, and she was going to do the right thing. Like, hey, I mean,
there's a scene where she like goes on her knees and screams into the sky because she finds out that the green place isn't there anymore. Like it's gone.
Yeah.
In Fury Road. Whereas like you don't really get a scene like that in Furiosa.
She's passionless. And that's what I'm saying. It played too much close to how Max was. That's why I got annoyed with it.
Yes. It's because they're that and like the choice to have her not say really anything much at all.
We're gonna build up her character, and there's gonna be a whole bunch of conflict and emotional trauma going on, but we're gonna play her like how Max is. And then in Fury Road, she's really not like that, because she is passionate about what she wants to do, and she does have a belief, and her only hope is this place.
Yeah.
Where they don't have that at all. So like it's almost unbelievable that she got to be Charlize Theron in Fury Road from where she came from.
Yeah.
Like if you watch that and you had not seen Fury Road, do you think she would be talking at all in Fury Road or presenting herself the way that Charlize Theron did?
You would think she's like borderline mute.
Like I would be like, oh, Praetorian Jack is Max now, and oh, she's here, and they're just going to hold hands while they drive this war rig.
I mean, Tom Burke is kind of playing this like he would play.
That's another reason why I got annoyed with
Mad Max.
Take
right?
his fucking character out,
because he kind of does just feel like a Mad Max surrogate, where like you could easily just see this guy play Mad Max in like a theater presentation or something.
Have
Mad Max on Ice.
Totally platonic relationship. That's what they needed to have. They had it set up, and then they fucking fumbled the ball.
Yes.
To have it with Dementis taking out him and to have her, they could have had a totally platonic relationship built on trust, and that event still could have happened and piss her off. It doesn't have to be a lover that you see die. It could be a good friend that helped you out in a time of need die.
It almost feels like there could have been more weight if they had kept it platonic.
Yes.
Because like by giving it that sort of like lover angle, it just feels like you're watching like writer's notes being lifted up on screen.
Thank you. Yes. Like why? And like Praetorian Jack was awesome.
No, I liked him. I liked like his thing and the idea of them being a duo for a while and like kind of like
set it up as like a buddy cop.
Yeah.
Like that would have been really fucking fun. And that would have been more harrowing watching him die than like, oh, they transition into lovers. Oh, God, that's just going to piss her off.
The movie
even
just
more.
kind of tells you, oh, they're lovers now.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
We got to piss her off even more because just watching her mom die wasn't enough.
Right. And like, I mean, the way they film it is interesting, and the idea behind it, I can understand.
Yes.
But
I agree.
Just, I don't know, the execution of it, like, that's the thing with this movie too, is like, I don't hate it at all. Like, I genuinely like this movie quite a bit, maybe a little bit more than you do, but there's certain things about it that just, they feel slightly off. Yeah, they feel like a little bit needs to be worked a little bit more, right? Like that's the big thing with it. Whereas like Fury Road, it just feels so tight and solid. And I mean, maybe that's partially just because like it all takes place within the time frame.
Yeah.
But then this goes on for however many years it takes for her to grow into Furiosa.
I mean, I personally believe that you can watch a film on its own and have judgment on it, but also if it lives within a universe, you are weighing it against something else.
Yes.
And
that's a question that I have too, is like, if this movie had come out first and then we got Fury Road, how would we feel about this movie on its own?
See that, and that's where it gets really tough for me because everything I watch is kind of not necessarily based off, but I am seeing so much of Fury Road thrust into this thing. So
unavoidably.
Yeah. And if you take out Fury Road, right, I think what would happen is this would probably go down one for me, and Fury Road might be a 10 out of 10. Because I would look at that against this and be like, oh shit.
Yeah,
dude, I couldn't believe that
ante.
This thing came out 10 years before Furiosa, and like cinematically speaking, just eye visuals, fucking way ahead of it in terms of action and cinematography and stunt coordination. Like there's a lot of this stuff in Furiosa with green screens and extras and standing around, and they get a couple things. There's one Praetorian Jack going to the war rig or on the war rig, right, where they get some of that action going on. Outside of that, it felt like a lot of set action on sets, and that's what it bums me out that they had to go that way, and that I wonder if the cinematographer Richard Seal.
So John Seal was the cinematographer on the first one. They got Simon Dugan on this one.
If John Seal was a part of this thing, that's what really bums me out, because that's where I do think that this thing lacked in.
I think John Seal retired after making 3,000 Years of Longing.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, he was longing for retirement. 3,000 years it took him.
But yes, that's why I think that this thing, I think it missed the mark with one, just some of the setup, how it plays out, and Furiosa not really having. Here's commentary wise, okay? Praetorian Jack, that whole thing comes up, right? We just assume now that they're lovers. Imagine if she's talking and she's like, you don't get it. Everything I love is gone. You're going to be gone. All of this is going to be gone. I can't do anything to help you, to help me do, like, give her some of that, right? There's some passion. She wants to live. No, it's just, hey, here's Praetorian Jack. Hey, you guys are cool. Oh, by the way, let's kiss, make out. Oh, we got to take him away. And she just is like, I'm going to kill him. Like, that's it. Like, that's where that's where it bummed me out a little bit, is it's not her fault. It's just that direction that they took, and they should have completely eliminated the stoic Max angle and gave Furiosa her own thing.
Yeah, because it's not like they're, like you said, it's not like they're without dialogue in Fury Road. They have moments where they do talk to each other, and I really think maybe George Miller kind of got in his head too much of like, oh, what people like about Fury Road is like the stoic silence of it, which I mean, that's a okay portion of the movie that people like, but that's not why it works.
Yeah, I mean,
I think why the movie works is like all the pieces coming together to make sense for that story.
Yes.
And this is a different kind of story, a different kind of saga, obviously. So you kind of have to treat it a little bit differently than what you're used to.
Yep. But
going into the saga thing of it, which we were teasing earlier. Yeah. This was, I guess, supposed to be made back to back with Mad Max Fury Road. So originally, Charlize Theron was going to be in a prequel of, her character in Fury Road, kind of portraying the Anya Taylor-Joy part, obviously. But then as they were making Fury Road, they were like, we can't make fucking two of these back to back.
Right.
We can barely make one.
Yeah.
And so
it's taken us 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So they decided, okay, I'm going to make this later. But then George Miller entered in a lawsuit with Warner Brothers because they didn't pay him like this $7 million bonus that they said they were going to.
Fuckers.
So that ended up in a lot of litigation. He finally came out on top of that. But it took years for that to get into production to make Furiosa. Now, he stated that he wanted to make both the prequel for Furiosa and 2 additional Mad Max movies after this. The thing is, this movie is not doing great financially. And
I wonder why.
Well, given like the box office and also George Miller's age, I mean, he's not a young
he's
dude.
An older guy.
He's I'm gonna get his age, 79 years old.
Yeah.
Between those two things, I don't know how much of that is going to be a possibility. No. So, I mean, I'm glad we got another one. I do like this movie overall, despite how kind of like critical we've been of it.
You're right.
But at the same time, you hate to see it flop. You know, you hate to see it go down.
I 100% agree, and I think I wanted more out of it, and it also speaks to how good Fury Road is.
Yes.
You know, like that's one that I want people to take away, because when I give my rating, it's probably like, oh, okay. But it does go to show how good of a film Fury Road is. And I think that's like the biggest thing that I took away from this, which sucks about the film, but like, oh, that is way better than what it probably should have been.
So kind of tying into that, and this can be like the last thing we touch on before we give our ratings. We were discussing about how, you know, before we were recording, how this movie is impressive because it works. At least it feels like it works, being able to watch this before Fury Road and then also doing the other way, watching Fury Road first and then going into this. Do you still feel the same way, or after the discussion, do you feel a little bit different? Because I think that's like one of the movie's biggest strengths, is being able to watch this either before or after Fury Road, and it's still working quite well.
Here's what I would say. If you have not seen either of them, watch this one first.
I would say the same thing,
because you can then get your. It's unfortunate, but like, here's an example, sports wise. No one might get it. You have the 2004 Pistons.
You gotta squeeze in the sports.
God
once
damn
an
it,
episode, Mac.
2004 Pistons won the NBA championship. Right. Since then, the Pistons have sucked. Okay.
Oh, really?
All you should really look at is the Pistons have been always bad. Right. And I'm not saying that this film's bad, but it's always going to get weighed against that team, you know? So like, if you didn't watch the 04 Pistons, you could just watch them now and be like, they suck. And then show the 04 Pistons and be like, that team was really, really good. You know, this is I think the same way. Watch this thing and you'll have a better feel for what you want, and you'll see how good Fury Road is. You go the opposite way, like what happened with me, truly. No. I take that back. That did not happen with me, because I remember Fury Road being good until I threw it back on, but I watched it back to back, which may have been a bad thing to do too. Did you watch it back to back?
I mean, not back to back, but I had like a couple weeks in between.
I literally went like 20 minutes.
I thought about watching it the next day after I saw it again.
You might have been in my boat if you had done that.
Maybe.
It's like there's it's striking, and I couldn't believe that this thing came out 10 years later and Fury Road looked better.
Yes.
That is what
I agree.
Makes it really impressive for me for that film. And with this one, like, yeah, I'm not going to hold Fury Road against it. You know, it's got to stand on its own, but it does suck that you know that capability and potential was there. But now after hearing that go on, like, it makes sense why this movie, imagine how many stops in production that they had, rewrites, I mean, people aging, like that it might have tarnished the film a little bit.
Maybe a little bit, but we can go into our ratings, and we can put a stamp on it.
Okay.
You should go first, since I went first last time.
Okay. I am going to give this a 7 out of 10.
That's where I thought you were going to go with it.
Yep. This is like we talked about. I mean, this thing, it's a fine film. It's a decent film. Mm-hmm. I had more hopes, I think, than what I even knew I had hopes for, because I didn't remember Mad Max too much walking into this thing. Like, I was like, man, I know it's a good film. And so going into this, I was like, that just seemed weird, seemed disoriented, disjointed, you know? Mm-hmm. And after watching Fury Road, I still have the same feelings. There's going to be a lot of things that piss me off, and then a lot of things that I'm probably going to come to appreciate over time. I mean, it took me like a week to actually like. Dementis was really fun. I mean, that was a great character, and I think Hemsworth did a great job with it.
I think yes,
and I think if I go back and watch it, I would laugh even harder at him, because I didn't realize how much of a aloof and an idiot he was.
Yes. Dementis the Red. Dementis the Living. He changes his name like every time he pops up on screen. It's great.
Oh, he's just like
he's got like a different title every time.
A fucking moron. Yeah, and I think I'd like to go back and watch him just be more of a moron.
Yeah. I think we're both pretty much on the same page. Like I said, I think I like this movie a little bit more than you. This is an 8 out of 10 for me. It is still a good movie, I would say. This is one that if you get the chance to check it out in theaters, I would still say it looks good. It's fun. And the biggest thing that works for it is that you could watch this one way or the other with Fury Road. And obviously, I think, like Mac, I would suggest you watch this first and then go into Fury Road. It's like you're getting the ultimate build-up. But at the same time, I think this works well enough as sort of a companion piece or sidekick to Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, this thing is like Scrappy-Doo.
No, don't say that. Scrappy-Doo from the live-action Scooby movie, written by James Gunn, which I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
Both of those movies are written by James Gunn. I don't know if he directed them. I think they were directed by someone else, but he wrote the screenplays.
Yeah. Did he do Howard the Duck, too?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's why there's a Howard the Duck reference in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Those movies are fucking wild. Those would be interesting to talk about.
There's a lot of movies. I was scrolling through movies to recommend. I'm like, man, a lot of these things would be interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of interesting, there was a request in Night Call with Sam Parker.
Oh,
the last one.
Because you told me about that.
I had to make it a separate video.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize that he sent it in until like the day that I had already uploaded the episode. So I was like, let me just quickly cobble this together and I'll put it as its own thing.
Yeah.
And in his Night Call, he requested that you and I talk about the trailer for Twisters.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now, they played this in my showing of Furiosa. I don't know if they did for you. Have you seen the trailer?
I've seen a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a couple different ones out there, right? Like there's the teaser.
They always have. Yeah,
and then
different cuts.
Yeah, then there's the one where like you get the characterization of Glenn Powell and whoever's playing the female lead actress whose name I don't remember. But I don't know. I think it looks like a sequel to Twister.
Yeah, Sam. Remember we were kind of talking about the mindless action 80s movies that you can kind of, turn your mind off to and watch.
Rambo 3.
Yep. And there are people that appreciate that and people that don't.
Daisy Edgar Jones is the female lead.
What else is she in?
I will look her up while you continue with your thought.
Yeah. And this...
Oh, she's not in much. She was in Where the Crawdads Sing, which was a movie that came out 2 years ago. I remember seeing posters for that.
That's a book.
Yes.
Yeah.
A book adaptation. She was in this movie Fresh, which is like a straight to Hulu Sebastian Stan.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Kind of like horror comedy. Looks like. You've seen it?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Is it good?
I watched it with Jasmine. It is a easy film to digest. Pardon the pun.
Okay.
Well, actually, you don't know about that pun until you watch it. So she plays the lead in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is Sebastian Stan's really fun in that thing.
And then there's a movie that's coming out called On Swift Horses, which, directed by Daniel Minahan, stars her and Will Poulter. Jacob Elordi.
Will Poulter.
Yeah, Will Poulter's the kid with the eyebrows and We're the Millers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also in Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
He's also in The Revenant as Jim Bridger.
Yes, he is.
He gets punched in the gut by Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
It all ties back around.
You gotta love The Revenant.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta love The Revenant.
Yeah, well, you have to if you're listening to this pod.
Yeah, if you don't, GTFO.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
No, Sam's really excited about seeing this. I think we're gonna see it in probably opening night. We've been texting back and forth. He
comes out July 19th.
Yeah, it's right around his birthday, and he's stoked. He's got way more energy going into this thing than I do.
He had a lot of energy in his Night Call.
Oh, dude, he is like I don't know how he does it with films. Sometimes when I can't tell you, I'm not. It's not like I'm a snob. It's just gotta move the needle, And this one, Glenn Powell, I feel like he's becoming the next Tom Cruise.
I think that it is kind of genius casting to have Glenn Powell in a Twister sequel.
Oh yeah,
I think he fits damn near perfectly.
Oh yeah, dude. He's becoming the next Tom Cruise. I'm fairly certain of it.
Yeah, and that's not just the fact that he's in Top Gun Maverick.
No. Listen,
he's in a lot of interesting shit that's coming out.
He's a very handsome individual. Great charisma and personality.
It feels like he can do like maybe a multitude of different genres. Like he's in that romantic comedy with Sydney Sweeney, but he's also going to be in this Richard Linklater Hitman movie.
Yeah, I think he's got I think Chris Pratt is what they were trying to do this with, and then he just turned into you're really just a one note guy. Mm-hmm. You know, you lost a bunch of weight. You're kind of funny. Like we're only going to keep you like in these certain types of films.
Lead action man.
Yes, where Glenn Powell
can quip off every now and again.
Yeah, and I think Glenn Powell's going to show us like Tom Cruise. I think has range, but it doesn't feel like Leonardo range. You know?
No, I mean he's still like a movie star kind of guy. Like he's not necessarily like an Adam Driver type, where like he'll lead your movie, but he's not going to be like, you know, an auteur about it or anything.
Exactly. Yes, but he's gonna be able to hold the screen really well. And
whereas like Glenn Powell, he feels like he has more of an ethos to him when you just look at him now, because like there's so much going on behind his performances. He can play an asshole. He can play like a rootin' tootin' guy. He can play someone who's like a little bit nebbish. Like I don't know. It seems like he can do a lot.
Ooh. Yeah.
Did you have an idea for a recommendation? You got that glint in your eye.
Yeah.
That you do when you think of a movie.
Yeah. It's never been brought up, but it's a Glenn Powell film. And it's the first time that second time I had seen him. First time I had seen him was in The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight Rises. He actually plays like a stockbroker guy that's getting his shoe shined.
Absolutely in line with someone he'd play.
It was the weirdest thing, because this movie that may or may not get recommended, I was like, I recognize that guy. And
also, he's someone who's a little bit older than how he looks. Do you know how old he is?
I'm guessing he's got to be late 30s, early 40s.
He's 35.
35?
He looks like someone who could maybe be like early 30s, like late 20s.
All those guys, dude. Everyone and anyone that gets on the big screen looks 10 years younger than what they are.
Also, I love his picture on Wikipedia. Like, it's this.
He's I am excited about Twisters coming out for him to see what he can do, because I really think that his charisma and his charm will be able to keep that thing going. Like Paxton has that, right? And Twister, I really liked this because he'd have that wry smile going on, and he had to me, a dry sense of humor in the thing. Whereas Glenn Powell's like the complete opposite almost, but I feel like he's gonna be able to pull us along the whole time, even when it's like, all right, this is kind of like we're just chasing tornadoes.
Yeah.
So I am excited in that line. I don't know, like the female leads, I don't really know much about, and that's what makes me a little nervous with staring the screen.
Well, they're definitely like Glenn Powell, it feels like, is going to be the one that does a lot of the lifting of the movie, right?
Oh, 1,000%.
Like he's going to be kind of like the character that like maybe we won't necessarily like follow him directly, but like he'll always be there. He'll be the one like doing the things and like saying the things.
Well, the problem that I think
I'm describing this really well.
Yeah, you did. It was great.
Doing the things and saying the things.
Yeah. Can't wait to see that on the poster.
I should write a book.
What makes me nervous is that in Twister, the ancillary characters, you had some standout performances, and you had some people that are well recognizable even after that movie, right?
Yes.
And in this one, it's, do we get the same performance, or is he going to lift this thing the whole time?
Right. Is this going to be just the two of them with like characters who maybe only have like one line in one scene?
Well, you could have another Dusty in there, but like Richard, Philip Seymour Hoffman fucking killed it.
Well, that and those characters are like, they're, to the movie's credit, they're actually given shit to do.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire movie. It's not just like, oh, this character is a side character, so we need to give them like one scene of them doing something. It's like they're all doing things the whole time.
I think because the crew with Dusty in it, like Richard, or God, I don't know why I keep saying Richard.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes. He was actually only given like 10 lines on the thing. Because he showed up and knocked it out of the park, they had him in more of the film, which gives the group more of an identity of being like an outcast or misfits,
Yes.
Which in this one, I am nervous about that. It's just Glenn Powell the whole time. And then you have these characters that if no one really...
Right. How generic are they going to be?
Yes.
How much are they going to do?
Yeah, because like Dusty led that other crew. So anytime that someone else said something, it's like, oh, they might actually actually say something that's kind of funny or clever, you know, and none of them really do. But if you think about it, they all seem like individuals.
Yeah. One thing I would never knock Twister for is not having unique, because like the characters, they all feel unique in some way,
which is a credit to, you know, that them at acting, right? Which makes me nervous about this one, because if you take that out, that dynamic out, you're just chasing tornadoes with one guy talking the whole time.
Yeah. I'll be real with you, Sam. I don't know if I remember too much of the specific trailer details.
It's not a lot.
Yeah, no, it's one of those trailers where like, oh, big tornadoes, and they're driving through them, and that's it. I mean, you get some like callback shots of like the little gizmos going in the tornado and like spinning around and shit. Yeah, and then the end of the trailer is like, there's 2 of them, you know, and then it just kind of ends,
which makes me nervous, because that's what they do in bad sequels.
Right.
We're just gonna up the ante in a really ridiculous way.
Right. I mean, it can work for some movies. Like, I feel like Aliens is a good example of that.
Right.
Whereas, like,
James Cameron directed that one.
Right. And this is a follow-up to a movie that came out, like 30 years ago, that has a cult following, but enough people...
You're sitting in front of them.
Right. But it's also marketing itself as like, oh, this is a disaster movie. This is maybe like... Maybe some people would think it's directed by Roland Emmerich or something, you know? But I guess we'll have to see. Do you want to guess the budget?
Of this?
Yes. Of Twisters?
You know, I'm so bad at this. I'm going to guess $80 million.
$200 million.
Fuck.
Yep. Budgets are getting bananas big.
Yeah.
In Hollywood.
Well,
it's kind of an issue.
It's just a little bit. Well, then you watch Godzilla -1 and you're like, that thing was made for what, 15 million?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it can be done on smaller budgets.
It can be done. You know, as much as, you know, you do not like the movie The Creator, you got to give the movie credit of the special effects and the budget. Really, that's the only thing you can kind of give it for.
That's
right?
about it. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, I will give it credit for that.
Whereas,
I think I
like,
did.
Movies like this coming out like 200 million minimum nowadays. It's like, what are we doing? Like, where is this money going?
Well,
man?
they got to knock it out of the park in the first week or two, because that's like,
yeah, this thing needs to open with like at least 100 mil, right?
Something along those lines.
Opening weekend 100 mil.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this thing is swirling down the drain.
Yeah, which we'll find out, because I know that we'll probably be chipping in some money. If it's good, we could be chipping. I mean, I got,
as much as, you know, I'm a little bit in the minority of like, I'm not a fan of Twister, I'll still see this movie.
Yeah, it'll be talked about on the pod.
Oh, I already made my peace with it. I already said, I know Mac's going to want to talk about Twisters.
I don't know. I'm not, like I said, Sam's really high on this thing, and he's got love and affinity for Bill Paxton that I have, but not to the extent he does.
Do you think they're going to talk about the previous movie
theory
characters?
Is that Paxton had a kid.
Do you think... Because I thought in the trailer that the vibe was like Daisy Edgar Jones is their kid, right?
Could be.
Or something. I don't think it's Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell feels too like in his own league to kind of follow in the footsteps.
I don't. At some point, you know that they're going to have like a walk down memory lane, and they're going to show some visuals up there.
Yeah. I think that's what they're going to do also.
Yeah. So we'll see. I am withholding judgment on anything right now, because I am a person that hates sequels. I think that they always get ruined. 1 out of every 10 is good, right? So, like, and that's what I'm saying. Like Furiosa, you have something to gauge it against, which I think is why sequels always are never as good as what you see, and they pull content from the first one, which if like The Godfather fucking went like, we're doing our own second one and expanding the universe. That's why it's so great, right? They hey, this is what happened in the first one. Michael's here now. Guess what? We're going.
Yeah.
You know, where in this
they're not trying to do like the same thing they did before. They're doing something different.
A little bit more grandiose if you do it that way too.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, you know, anyways. That's why I'm withholding my judgment on anything with this thing until I see it and I can sit down and watch it. I do think that Powell's going to be awesome And I know Sam, speaking from talking to him, has probably watched this trailer every night before he goes to bed. And I would guess has a countdown until we're going to see it.
He prays to Bill Paxton before he lays his head down on his pillow. That's our thoughts on the Twisters trailer.
Yes.
That was for you, Sam, and for anybody who, cares to listen to.
I hope
our
you guys
thoughts on
all
it.
see it. Go treat it like wealthy theater.
Yes. Go treat it like our showing of The Room.
Yeah.
Interactive experience. Cool. Well, one more bit of housekeeping before we wrap up. It's your turn to recommend a movie.
What is there anything out in theaters that we need to go see?
Let me look. I will do that while you formulate.
This is what it's going to kind of tie on. There's a sports angle I'd like to take. Actually, maybe 2 sports angles. I don't really know. But if there's something in theaters, I just want to see what we would pick. I don't know if there is anything.
There's not. Let me look at tomorrow's just because it's only given me the show times for tonight. Oh, so there's Bad Boys Ride or Die.
No, stop. We're not. We're not. No.
There's the Garfield movie.
No.
You want to talk about lasagna, John?
Preston had that on when he was here.
I mean...
that movie is...
I feel like a lot of these movies have already been out, like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, The Fall Guy. In a Violent Nature might be interesting. I think they're playing it near here, but
In a Violent Nature. Oh, the POV?
The POV horror slasher movie.
That won't go good with what I want to pair it with.
That's fine.
We might have to talk about that, though. I'm very interested in checking that out.
I want it. That's like the more interesting movie that is coming out of all that I'm looking at. There's Jesus Thirsts, The Miracle of the Eucharist. What the fuck is this? What is this movie?
I don't know what you just said.
Jesus Thirsts, The Miracle of the Eucharist.
No, that sounds like a very heavy Bible film.
The Miracle of the Eucharist takes viewers on a global journey to uncover the transformative power of the Eucharist. Through discussions with Catholic leaders and heartfelt personal narratives, the film unveils the Eucharist as Jesus Christ himself, eagerly desiring to fulfill our spiritual thirst with his boundless love. Isn't euchre a poker or not a poker? Isn't euchre a card game?
Yeah. Yep. Played it this weekend.
It must have like a weird different meaning.
Eucharist is probably like a... I thought it was a plant.
Yeah, Jesus is a plant. Eucharist, the Christian service, ceremony, or sacrament commemorating the Last Supper, in which bread and wine are consecrated and consumed. I feel like that really doesn't tell me much of anything else. Anyway.
Okay.
We can figure it out. What movie to watch.
Well,
maybe not Jesus Thirsts, The Tale of the Eucharist or whatever.
I was saying was there's a good Glenn Powell movie that I could pair up with something else. Well, here's the thing. Okay, we've got option A and option B right here, unless we just say nix it and then we'll come up with whatever. We've talked about doing 2 films of this before. Okay. We've got Glenn Powell and a Disney film.
Okay.
Now, we don't have to watch both. I'm just saying they pair up well. That's all I'm thinking about. That's why if we have a new movie, we'd check that out and anyways, right or left?
I'm going to go right.
This one?
Well, I was thinking the other one.
This one?
Yeah. So
Glenn Powell?
Right. Yeah.
Glenn Powell?
Why not? Why not?
So, leading up to Twisters, okay. I guess, we have some months. 2 trains of thought here, because I just watched this movie with Preston. I don't know if you've seen it, and I'm very curious about it. The first one with Glenn Powell is Everybody Wants Some.
I've heard
Richard Linklater film.
Mm-hmm.
I love this thing. I actually let a buddy of mine, I told him he'd enjoy watching it. His dog destroyed the DVD. So I don't have that DVD anymore. It's tragic.
Uh-huh.
But great film. Would love to talk about that and have fun with that.
Okay.
What I'd like to pair it up with, I don't know if you've seen it. If you have, we don't have to do it. But if you haven't, I think you should. The Sandlot.
That is a huge childhood movie for me, Mac.
You've seen The Sandlot?
Not only have I seen The Sandlot, I've seen it so many times as a kid. That was a staple.
Wow.
For me as like a childhood movie.
That's unbelievable.
I've almost recommended it multiple times on this podcast.
I think they're both baseball films. Glenn Powell's in it. It's leading up. The Sandlot goes down smooth. Me too.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
I watched it with Preston, and he was totally. We had him and his cousins staying the night. Totally into it. I was totally into it. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat.
Love that movie.
And I was like, I don't know if Kyle's seen this. This would be a great one if he hasn't, because I get, sports films and whatnot. But I think that's an easy one to talk about.
No, my angle on it would have been like, I'm going to recommend you a sports movie, Mac. It's going to be The Sandlot.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I've thought about this so many. I'm glad we're doing it. I'm happy that you recommended it.
Good. Those would be the two I'd say that we could do.
Let's lock it in.
Okay, there it is. Because
sure.
I think you're gonna like Everybody Wants Some too. But if anything, you get a little Glenn Powell.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to the 73rd episode of the Neon Crew podcast. If you guys don't want to be spoiled for Everybody Wants Some and The Sandlot, be sure to check those films out before episode 74. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube if you haven't already, and be sure to give us some 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on our various social medias, our Facebook page, and our YouTube community page. We'll be posting some memes there, some questions, some audience interactive stuff. If you guys want to engage with that, that'll be up there for you. Nice. Go to our Etsy page. You can find our various merchandise. It's all shirts. Summertime's here. Get yourself a t-shirt. We got some white shirt selection so you can bounce that sun off of you. Don't absorb it, you'll die. Thank you to Gideon for doing our music, and thank you to Lauren for doing our logo design. You can find their various social medias below. Thank you to Sam for providing the night call, if he did for this episode. If not, thank you to Sam anyway for being a friend of the podcast.
Yes.
And McClain, a bit of business to be had before we wrap up. Just one more. Very appropriate for this episode.
WWTHD.
Boy, everyone.